Here we go. Welcome, Average Joe Nation from around the globe. Props to you for staying up to date and keeping in the know. With fantasy football, man, very soon you'll reign. The knowledge that these three guys have, man, it is insane. Yeah, fantasy football talk hateful eight, they wear the crown. Hold it down. Pickle, Blackburn, and Trimboli, hold it down. Pulling up to the recording studio, we're getting loud. Getting ready, headphones on, red light go, break it down.
Welcome back to the Hateful Eight Fantasy Football Podcast with your host, I'm Pickle, and with me as always, Blackburn.
That's right, I'm here.
And as always, oh wait, he's not here today.
We're missing Trimboli.
Trimboli's not in today, but that's okay. Simple task for us today. Just answer some general questions for you guys, the listeners.
Listener question week.
Yeah, we can. I think we can handle it. I thought about bringing like my fantasy championship trophy, so then all three of us could be champions at this table, but. It's okay.
So that would make me a 3-time champion?
I guess.
Yeah, I like that.
Anyways, today's show, as we talked about, it's going to be listener questions segment we call Take It or Leave It. That's the main segment today. Obviously, we got some fantasy news and notes to get into. You can follow us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on Fridays at 10:30 p.m. and 4 p.m. Sundays on DATV. So.
We're everywhere.
We're starting to expand the brand even more so. So let's go ahead and get into today's first segment, Fantasy News and Notes.
Fantasy News and Notes.
All right, Fantasy News and Notes presented by Sleeper. If you're wanting to stay up to date on all things fantasy news, then make sure you download the app Sleeper. Download it on iOS or Android, or you can go on your laptop or PC as well if you're able to sit down for more than 5 seconds.
Right.
I'm not like that. I can't.
I'm not either.
So
always on the go.
All right. General news, Emmanuel Sanders runs in cleats for the first time since his Achilles tear last year. I mean, I watched the video. It really wasn't anything impressive. It wasn't like he was out there running like major routes. He was just kind of running straight lines to kind of get more acclimated.
Contact.
Right. So
those are the most dangerous ones, though.
Right, and he's up there in the age range for wide receivers. They do have some young guys coming in, but
they need him.
He is, I kind of say he's kind of like the Larry Fitzgerald of that wide receiver group. He may not be the big spectacular guy that you're going to see fantasy-wise on a week in and week out top 10, but he's going to be relevant matchup-wise, and there's going to be games where his coverage is going to propel the other guys around him.
He was top 10, top 12 for the majority of the season last year.
He was. So that's the big thing for him is I think him getting back not only helps him obviously for fantasy and just overall on the field, but I think it helps Sutton, Hamilton, and some of these other guys.
Noah Fant,
the new addition. So, and then this one near and dear to my heart, which is frustrating, but
I like this though.
I don't. Jerry Jones says we're sold on Dak Prescott, rumored in the $30 million range due to the current market for quarterbacks. Thank you, Russell Wilson.
$30 million.
So, to me, do I think that Dak Prescott could be a viable quarterback option for the next couple years? Yes. Do I think that he is worth $30 million? No.
Absolutely not.
If I was Dallas, you got to feel pretty, I don't want to say stupid, but you got to feel like you're behind the 8 ball now because prior to Russell Wilson's overall offense, or his contract, I should say.
Right.
You were looking in that $20 to $21 million range, which I still think that's a high number for Dak, but I think that would have been an easier pill to swallow for Dallas fans in general because Dak, although he has been good at times, there are times where he looks like an average to below average quarterback. So yeah. I get concerned when I see the $30 million range.
Well, it's like the trend from a couple years ago before they set the rookie wage scale. Every quarterback that came out, they got more and more and more money, all these first-round picks.
Right.
So Dak's just a product of he's the next guy in line to get a contract.
Yeah.
What's going to happen when it handicaps your team?
Right. Well, and that's the thing. I know Dallas went and got younger offensive linemen and stuff like that to kind of rebuild because they know that the offensive line is key to their style of play.
Well, yeah, but you're going to have to pay Zeke.
Zeke is looking in the $20 million range. Amari Cooper said he wants somewhere in the $20 to $23 million range.
You got some stud offensive linemen and some stud defensive linemen.
Well, you just paid Lawrence, so you're at least taking care of that part. But Byron Jones is wanting money. I mean, there's a lot of key parts in this. So, and I hate to say it for Dallas purposes as a Dallas fan, I know what our team looks like when we have a bad defense. Just ask Tony Romo the last 4 or 5 years of his career where he offensively was doing great statistically across the board. They were top 4 or 5 in the NFL, but when it came down to it, to stopping Aaron Rodgers, stopping some of these these great offensive teams, you couldn't just do it. You waited till right there at the last moment. Jared Cook catches the ball at the end of the sideline, and then the game's over.
Which was a sweet catch, by the way.
It was. So I just, as a Dallas fan, you got to invest money across the board.
Right. $30 million for, I mean, at least Russell Wilson went to 2 Super Bowls.
Correct.
Could have had 2 rings, but
right. I'm just telling you as a Dallas fan, I don't like seeing the $30 million.
I don't either. But, you know, these guys like Mahomes and Jared Goff, all these other guys, they're licking their chops right now.
Right. I'm just saying, if you are Mahomes and you know what you're worth and you go put up another big number performance this year.
Oh, yeah.
And Dak gets a $30 million contract, I mean, he's pushing probably closer to $40 million now.
I was going to say 40 to 45.
And we talked about earlier in the season where Mahomes was wanting in that 29 to 30 range.
Right.
At this point, before Dak Prescott's came out.
So now you got Deshaun Watson's out there. You got all these other up-and-coming quarterbacks.
Man,
$30 million's a lot for 1 year.
Yeah. So, and then in other news, Bilal Powell was cleared post-neck injury from 2018. NFL teams have been informed via letter that he is available to be picked up, and he's been medically cleared by the NFL, which is a good thing. When you're dealing with a neck injury, that's always a concern, especially a running back who's going to be hitting the hole. He's going to be in a lot of the grinding out yards and stuff like that. That's a lot of contact for a guy with neck injury.
Well, he's more of the pass catching back. He'll get picked up by somebody, but I guarantee his contract will be incentive based.
I would say yes, and an injury clause maybe. So, and then today I saw come out Ben Watson is visiting some teams. Apparently he's coming out of retirement.
Unretires when the Patriots come calling.
So the Patriots, the Chiefs, and I think there's one other, maybe the 49ers, I think are the 3 teams that he's looking at to potentially visit with over the next couple of weeks.
I mean, Ben Watson and Safari and Jenkins or whatever wouldn't be too bad.
No, and they didn't go out and get one of the big tight ends in the draft like we thought they might. I just think that Ben Watson is he's a red zone threat only. I mean, he's touchdown upside at this point.
Hey, go chase that ring, man.
Right. I mean, if you can get one, go for it. But for fantasy purposes, he's not one
that
I'm going to go take care of now.
No.
He kind of disappointed me last year with pretty much a clear path for tight end purposes in New Orleans and did nothing. So
well, there was 3. I did a mock draft last night.
Yeah.
Kyle Rudolph, Tyler Eifert, Jordan Reed did not even get drafted in a 10-man draft. So I would draft all 3 of those guys before I picked up Ben Watson.
Yes, most definitely. So some signings. Now, we kind of hit on it briefly last week, but we actually have the numbers now. Spencer Ware signs a 1-year deal worth $1.2 million total, with including guaranteed money, signing bonus, whatnot, to the Indianapolis Colts. Do you have a concern now with Marlon Mack? Because
no, I have a concern with Nyheim Hines.
Okay, so does that mean if you're looking at it in the handcuff perspective, or the guy that you want to have just in case one of these guys goes down for injuries, does this now bump Nyheim Hines back and put Spencer Ware as the number 2?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, because I've seen some people say Spencer Ware is going to come in and essentially do exactly what he did in Kansas City with, I just drew a blank on it. Jamal Charles, as well as Kareem Hunt and stuff like that, where they're kind of spelling them like, yeah, but it's kind of a different offensive style.
Well, Marlon Mack's got his role already carved out.
They made it very clear he's the guy.
Yeah. So I could see them. I mean, that's just another weapon for Andrew Luck to throw to. Not that he doesn't have enough already. Right.
So, but I think this is good for Spencer Ware.
Yeah, it's good for Spencer Ware, not so good for Nyheim Hines.
Because now I think that Spencer Ware becomes a potential waiver wire pickup or a kind of a watch and see, depending on how much they introduce a 2-back set, or if they're trying to spell and give Mac a little bit of time to kind of, so they're not running him into the ground. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But Spencer Ware is one to kind of keep an eye on for later in fantasy drafts.
Could be a late round steal depending on what happens.
Right. And then Rod Smith, former Dallas Cowboy running back, signs with the New York Giants. I don't have the numbers yet. I looked, but
I don't think it's that big a deal anyway.
I'd say,
to be honest,
to me, he's the handcuff to Barkley, but that's about it. I mean, that's about his fantasy relevance is depending on Barkley's health. That's it. Oh. To me, at least.
Absolutely. He's not even a thought to get drafted.
No, because ask Wayne Gallum and all these other guys that were playing behind him last year, Ridley and all these guys, they really did not see the ball at all unless Barkley had just ran 5 times in a row for 90 yards and needed a quick second break, or if the game was out of the reach, and then just kind of let him sit for
garbage time.
Right. So ultimately, for me, Rod Smith is a non-draftable waiver wire guy to kind of wait and see, and maybe he's somebody that you kind of keep an eye on. I mean, personally, for me, if I'm specifically like if I know that I'm playing the guy, this is just a strategy I've come to think of is if you're playing a guy that's got Saquon Barkley, and right before kickoff you pick up Rod Smith, like you because we kind of tend to play with like the roster where you have like a one spot where you can kind of rotate guys in and out as frequent as possible.
Yes.
This might be a play where right before kickoff you pick up Rod Smith, you put him on your bench just in case something were to happen to Saquon Barkley before the game. Or not. I mean, it just depends. But, I mean, Rod Smith to me is nothing more than just a handcuff that you're waiting to see if, worst case scenario, something happens to Saquon. But outside of that, he's not fantasy relevant.
Not relevant at all.
So, and then I was trying to see if there was anything else. I don't think there was anything.
I think that was it. Yeah, it was pretty dry.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of information. I was surprised, honestly. I was expecting something.
Well, we're in the dead zone, like I like to call it. After draft and before like training camps, there's really not much going on.
Right. I know that some of the rookies got in and kind of did some like voluntary workouts and stuff like that to kind of get into
they had
the
2-day camps.
So
Des Bryant was working out.
I was going to ask, did you see him?
He fell.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, there goes the Achilles.
They posted that video, and they were like, oh, look, he looks great working out, and he slips on a little out route.
Right.
I was like,
stops. He does a
what?
little pitter-patter feet to cut and go up the field, and it's like, and he falls. You're like,
that looked great. Let's sign him right now.
right. Whatever.
He'll get picked. I think he'll get signed by somebody.
Somebody's going to pick him up. It might be after once preseason starts, but yeah. So
injury bugs coming in.
Indeed. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into the final segment of today. Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
All right, take it or leave it. Presented by Trophy Smack. Trophy Smack has over 1,000 different unique fantasy trophy combinations. They also have fantasy rings, fantasy championship belts. If you want to level up your fantasy smack talk, head over to trophysmack.com and purchase your fantasy football trophies. They also have a deal going right now. If you buy a trophy, you actually get entered into a drawing for a signed Saquon Barkley jersey.
Nice.
And also with our 2019 draft loadout, if you purchase the draft loadout right now between now and May 31st, you'll get a 50% off promo code for Trophy Smack for a ring, as well as get entered into a drawing where we're going to give away a free championship ring for them as well.
All that for $8.
$8. So, all right. The listener questions, there was a bunch of them. I kind of tried to like minimize them as possible because there was some. I mean, we had some repetitive ones. It seems like the same kind of questions,
right?
Which is kind of funny to think that. I mean, that's what always is so fun for me with fantasy football is you always think, man, am I the only one thinking of this question? This is the only one. Am I the only one that's racking my brain about this player and this player? And then you go on to like Sleeper and you see the forum and you see like 3 people literally ask the same question in a row, and you're like, okay, so I'm on the same page as some of these other people. But the first one, these were on SleeperBot, sent in wise, and the guy's name is Sundays. It says, can you discuss some of the polarizing mid-round running back and wide receivers? So some of the guys that you're looking at, running back, wide receivers in those mid-round or in the mid-round. So mid-rounds to me is somewhere in most standard drafts, you're drafting somewhere around 15, 16 rounds. So you're looking in that 6 to 8 range or later even.
6 to 10 roughly.
Right. So some of the guys that we kind of picked up on wide receivers, at least I'll let you kind of mention the running backs, but for wide receivers, we kind of talked about with Sterling Shepard, 10-03. Big opportunity with no Odell.
He's the number 1.
Right. They did not bring in a big name wide receiver.
They re-signed Shepard to multi-year.
Right. So they gave him the extension, let Odell walk. They've got Evan Ingram, who's their next best receiving threat, I guess you could say. I mean, Saquon's number 1, but I mean in the wide receiver tight end where you really are lining up in the receiving side of things, I think that Sterling Shepard's 1, Evan Ingram's 2, but obviously the biggest receiving guy is going to be Saquon.
Don't forget also, they brought in Golden Tate.
They did. I don't know. I just think that Sterling Shepard, I'm hoping for their sake that they put him where he's supposed to be, which is in the slot, and they don't put him on the outside. Yeah. Because now, but on the flip side, then that takes away Golden Tate because I think Golden Tate does better in the slot. So it's like, who's going to be the guy in that slot position that's going to see the most targets? Because that's who's usually, if you look statistically across the board for teams, unless they're a big-time threat like a Michael Thomas or a Mike Evans or some of these bigger physical wide receivers, most of those undersized guys are running in the slot, and that's where they make their money.
Yeah, I think Shepard will be outside guy. He's got the speed to get there. I think they're going to use Golden Tate inside, And like Trimboli always says, follow the money. They paid Sterling Shepard.
Yeah. The next one this is the guy that I'm probably the most high on out of these three is Tyler Lockett at 701.
Absolutely.
Love it. Doug Baldwin. I mean, we were already talking about Tyler Lockett's potential with Baldwin coming back. Then when they drafted DK Metcalf, and then we hear the news that Baldwin is probably not coming back, which Baldwin was the guy that kind of rotated in and out of the slot.
Sure.
To me, Tyler Lockett can go in the slot. You got DK Metcalf as a physical wide receiver on the outside, and then you got one of these other wide receivers that they've got.
And Lockett can still go outside.
He can. I'm just saying now you've got a guy,
right.
and I just think that they just continue to they're getting better offensively, and I just think Tyler Lockett's set up to be a top 12 wide receiver right now, potential.
Right. Especially being drafted at 7-1.
Right.
That could be a steal, and especially in PPR formats.
Right. And, I mean, I looked, and his ADP really hasn't rose a ton post Baldwin's news and DK Metcalf, which is surprising to me. So I don't know if people, I don't want to use the cliche, are sleeping on this guy. But, I mean, I'm just surprised that his numbers didn't rise up to like that 5 range once the news of Baldwin and Metcalf.
I think they're going to.
You still think that people are just behind?
I think by draft time when preseason August gets here, he'll be up into the 6-5 range.
So for all of us fantasy football people that are really into Tyler Lockett, Pete Carroll, please keep all of your coach talk to a minimum about Tyler Lockett. Talk up DK Metcalf all you want. Disley, all those guys. Carson, Rashad Penny, do it. Talk them all up.
And keep your shirt on too.
Yeah, you scare the kids. Anyways, and then the final one for me, wide receiver wise, is Tyler Boyd, 707. AJ Green coming back. They did bring back Eifert. They did bring back. They've just brought back a new. I shouldn't say they brought back. They brought in a new offensive style. I just think that this offense is going to want to push the ball. It's going to want to score and score at will.
That was the quarterback coach for the Rams. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
No, I know what you're talking about.
It's from the McVay tree. We talk about it all the time.
He's on the good branch from the McVay tree.
Yes.
So he's not one of the the one guy that happened to bump into him.
They brought in. They went offensive line first round last year with Billy Price. They went and got that Alabama kid.
Yep. Sample or not Sample, but that's the tight end.
I forget his name, but he was the number one offensive lineman. So they've bolstered their offensive line. I like Boyd, especially if Green, if he gets re-injured again.
Right.
He's up in that 30 range.
I mean, I like Tyler Boyd with A.J. Green in there, but I like Tyler Boyd obviously even more with A.J. Green out of there. But, I mean, either way, you're getting a perfect spot for a guy at 707. Tyler Lockett, Tyler Boyd. I mean, if you can get them guys somewhere in that 7 to 8 range, I mean, those guys are
golden.
Right. I mean, you're looking at essentially Lockett being the wide receiver 1 without Baldwin, and Tyler Boyd being the wide receiver 2 on an offense that's going to try to push it and maximize as many points on the board as possible.
Yep.
So, all right. So running backs, who did we end up talking about?
We went with our first one was Kenyon Drake.
Yeah.
I like him, especially in PPR formats. Now they got Josh Rosen there to be the quarterback. I could see Kenyon Drake being somewhat of a Saquon Barkley type in catching only.
No Gore.
No. Yeah, there's no Gore in running, but I'm talking about just dump downs.
Right.
Check downs. I like Kenyon Drake a lot. His ADP right now is 6'5".
I like that. And the fact that I'm not hearing a whole lot about Balaj anymore. I mean, he was really hyped up last year, and I was hyped up on him just because I was hearing a lot of positive talk that he might be the guy that kind of takes over because they weren't sold, but that was also Gase and his lack of commitment to Kenyon Drake. But to me, if Kenyon Drake gets the opportunity to be the one, like you said, there is no more Frank Gore. It's a new offensive style. I think that they could do a lot of checkdowns, and they're going to probably be playing from behind, so it's a lot of passing.
Garbage time.
So why not take a guy 605? Perfect.
That's decent. Next guy we got is Darius Geis. Showed a lot of promise last year in the preseason, and then he gets hurt.
Right.
They did re-sign Adrian Peterson for 2 years, but I think Geis is going to be their lead guy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's got a pretty good setup. I mean, yeah, he's coming off of an injury, but I think even as a Dallas fan, non-Washington fan, I can honestly agree that I think he just has to get his feet underneath him.
Yep.
And once he does, he's taking off, and he's going to carry the rock. And, yeah, Adrian Peterson's going to factor in some, but I think that if Geis is truly as healthy, is 100% ready to go for the season and stays healthy and does what we saw in just that few snaps in the preseason and all the hype coming in, I think that he's going to take this and he's going to be one of those upper echelon running backs that you're going to be talking about in that top, I'd say 13, 14, if he's healthy.
Yeah, hopefully.
So,
I mean, Redskins got a top 8 offensive line, and right now his Geis's ADP is 8th round, 4th pick. It's not terrible.
No, for a guy that you're probably drafting as your running back 3 by that point.
Right.
That's a flex spot essentially.
Yep.
So
And our last guy we got is Jordan Howard.
yeah,
I mean, just name alone, his ADP is 7.9, so
Right.
almost 8th round. I know that backfield's crowded, but I think Jordan Howard is going to be the lead back there in Philly.
yeah. I think that the fact that they went and spent the draft capital on Miles Sanders tells me that they are willing to move forward with Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders as their 1-2 punch. But I think that for specifically redraft non-PPR, so I guess the old school cliche phrase of standard or non-PPR, Jordan Howard is going to be perfect for that style of play because he's going to get a lot of the carries. He's going to get a lot of the goal line opportunities. Now, in the PPR setting, that's where he kind of to me kind of falls a little bit in worth. And that's not like I think he's bad at playing football or anything. I just think that when you change the scoring from non-PPR to PPR, that's when his value kind of flips upside down in a negative way for him. But I still think at 709 in a PPR league, I just think that that's not bad for a guy.
That's a good value to me. I mean,
Right, it's
you're
still-
talking 8th round. You got all your starters theoretically already picked.
Right. And
That's a bench player.
I mean, that's essentially a Geis setup, a same spot. You're drafting him as probably your third running back at that point.
Yeah.
If you're drafting like we do, where we go running back early and often, that's your third running back. So I'm on board with Jordan Howard at 709, and I think that he is going to have fantasy value just as much as Miles Sanders is going to be fantasy relevant. I just think that Jordan Howard's going to get the early opportunity.
I do too.
So,
yep.
all right. And then the second question from Sundays was also, which second-year players are you high on, whether that's high and low on ADP, riser, faller, etc. So for me, the guys that I'm high on for sure is Dante Pettis, and I'm even more so high on him now, even so after the NFL draft, because that was the guys that I talked about. I said they got to go out and add a couple wide receivers, which they did.
They did.
So I'm okay with that, and I think that helps Dante Pettis even more so. And he's got a 905 ADP. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I'm on board with that. And then the other guy that I'm high on is Royce Freeman. I just think that he's going to have the opportunity potentially to get where they spent draft capital on him to potentially get the opportunity to beat out Phillip Lindsay. So I know that you have Lindsay on your high list, but I've got Freeman at 1004. I've got that as a perfect spot.
Yeah. I got the high guys.
Yeah.
DJ. I took the wide receiver. I got DJ Moore.
Yeah.
6'8".
Mhm.
Funchess is gone now.
Yeah.
I look for him to pick up a lot more targets this year, especially with Cam being healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I also got Darius Guice.
Yeah.
So like we talked about, 8'4". That's not bad, and his potential could be really good.
Yeah. And then the guys that I am low on, Ito Smith with a 1110 ADP. I just think in the opportunity that he got last year with Freeman and Coleman, Freeman hurt, Coleman struggling and hurt at times, Ito Smith was given the opportunity, and he just didn't do anything with it.
I mean, from the gate, he had one or two good games, but then Phillip Lindsay just outshined him the rest of the season.
Yeah,
They just kept rotating him, though. They should have just stuck with Lindsay the whole time.
Yeah, that was my biggest concern with him was I just felt like he was given multiple opportunities
He
he just never shined, and you're just like, and I mean, I'll be honest, last year on the show, I was very much a week by week proponent, like, okay, this is the week Ito takes over. This is it. He's got the opportunity. It's his show. And then you come in the following week, and you're like, the guy crapped the bed. I mean, it was like, what happened? You're like, you were given the opportunity. The volume was there, and you did nothing with it.
I thought we were talking about Freeman.
Oh, I thought we were talking about Ito Smith.
Either way, they both had the opportunity, and
They did.
and they both squandered it.
I just think that Freeman walking into the situation's a better setup than Ito Smith because he doesn't have a big name guy like a Devonta Freeman who's under a big time contract. He's basically battling out with an undrafted rookie essentially that they've not invested any more money in.
Well, he was a rookie, right? Freeman was not Freeman, but Lindsay was a rookie.
So was Freeman. So that's what I'm saying. But the draft capital for Freeman was there. Lindsay was undrafted. That's my thing.
Lindsay outshined Freeman big time, in my opinion.
He did, but I'm hoping that maybe a new offense, a better style of play, a quarterback better. I don't know.
Flacco.
Well, we're trying. I'm trying. Anyways, but for me, Ito Smith was low. Lindsay's low for me. So you're high on Lindsay, though, correct?
I like Lindsay a lot.
Okay. And then who's the guys you were low on?
My low guys were Rashad Penny,
Right.
908. I don't like that at all,
Mhm.
especially with Carson being there.
Yeah.
And now you got DK Metcalf, Lockett, Dilly's coming back. So
Dilly, indeed.
Russell Wilson, he's going to run the ball too. So, and then my other low guy is Cortland Sutton.
Yeah. I mean, before you get too far in, I was really high on Cortland Sutton last year, and I was like, he's got the opportunity. He's got the big body frame. He's got the physical abilities that, like an A.J. Green, just a physical wide receiver that can go up and get the ball. And then you're like, well, he dropped an easy pass. He sucked at running these routes.
Yeah.
And he's not getting any separation.
Well, he got buried behind Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, rightfully so.
Right.
But when they traded Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders
was the guy.
Yeah. I mean, he really didn't step up and do nothing.
And that was the thing. Even then when Emmanuel Sanders got hurt, we're like, okay, he is the one on the depth chart. But Deshaun Hamilton was the one that actually stepped up. And he's more like Emmanuel Sanders. So it's like, okay, so is Cortland Sutton just a big physical receiver that's only really viable in the red zone?
Right.
Or is he just have a bad rookie year? I mean, because sometimes really good wide receivers end up doing well in their second, and sometimes it takes to their third year to be great.
True.
But I just felt like with the sample that we saw, I was like, I'd take Deshaun Hamilton over Cortland Sutton on a week-by-week basis.
Thing. You got Deshaun Hamilton still there.
Yeah.
You got
Sanders is still
Sanders,
there.
And they bring in Noah Fant,
right,
who's going to be a red zone target.
And that's
you
what
can still
Sutton should have been.
Still throw to Lindsey.
Right. I mean, regardless of who's the running back, I mean, you got Freeman or Lindsey and Freeman, however you want to say it. If they split the carries or make it a 60-40, whatever, you still have Emmanuel Sanders, who may not be 100% by the time the season starts. You got Hamilton, who was drafted in the same draft class with him. He's not really shown too much. And then they spent a high draft capital on Noah Fant.
Which, if you watch Joe Flacco in Baltimore, he made Dennis Pitta and Ed Dixon look like Pro Bowlers.
Right. And then he had, last year, Mark Andrews and all the different, he spread the ball out to him, but he's got one true set tight end now that's a move tight end, as if you want to put a title on him. He's not a blocking tight end like Hawkinson, but
he's an athletic tight end.
But I like Noah Fant in this offense, and I think he's going to be a viable option. It might be a matchup-based game by game, but overall, I'm concerned about Cortland Sutton again this year. Unless I see something in preseason or some hype coming and talking out coach-wise, or him and Flacco are really bonding well on the field, I just
his ADP is 11 round first pick.
No, thank you.
Right.
I mean, it's a great spot, but I feel like he should be one that you could pick up probably in the 14th round and still feel okay about it. But
I'm with you. Let me do the next one. It's Gettleman's Draft Prodigy.
I love the name.
I mean, they drafted Daniel Jones at 6.
It is the Prodigy. He was full bloom.
But they're going to make him sit for 3 years. Anywho, 14-team dynasty startup draft. You pick 14 and 15. All right, here's the running backs that are still available. Melvin Gordon, Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook, and Le'Veon Bell. Those are all still on the board.
Yes.
The question is, which two players are you building for your dynasty around, or would you just skip the running backs and pick a wide receiver?
Who did you end up picking out of the running backs? Because we'll start there.
Okay. With these guys on the board, I would pick them over a wide receiver at this point, unless it was like Hopkins or somebody.
Right.
But obviously, he's probably going to be gone if this is what you're dealing with. So I'm taking Melvin Gordon and Dalvin Cook as my two running backs.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The Dalvin Cook thing, I think it's just the offense he's rolling into. Yeah, they did bring in a running back, Mattson, through the draft, but I just think that Dalvin Cook is the guy, and they've made it very clear that they want to get him going. The new offensive style really featured him last year when they switched coordinators, and I just think that Kirk Cousins is going to I think that they have enough receiving options that they're going to have to run the ball, and they upgraded some of the offensive line style. So
yeah, they grabbed two good offensive linemen.
So I think that they're trying to portray a more balanced offense. It's not so pass heavy. Yes, you put a lot of money in Kirk Cousins' bank account to make him a throwing option, the throwing quarterback every down.
Thielen.
Right, and Diggs. So they've done it, and I think that still Dalvin Cook to me is the best one.
Absolutely.
Now, I actually picked Nick Chubb, and it's only because I think that he is in a younger offense for dynasty purposes. Now, Melvin Gordon, I think, is the better running back out of him and Nick Chubb, and that's why. And we talked about it off air. I said, are we in a win now mode, or are we start? I know it's a startup, but are you wanting to win in the next year or two, or are you wanting to win in the next? Are you trying to win, set up a team to build in year 3? It's a juggernaut. That's the difference for me.
I get it, and like we talked about off air. I like Nick Chubb a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But the only thing that scares me is you got Kareem Hunt sitting there waiting in the wings.
Right. And
whereas in L.A., nobody's sitting behind Melvin Gordon waiting.
Well, I mean, they got Eckler and some of these guys, but nobody to the same talent level as Melvin Gordon.
As a Kareem Hunt,
Right.
looking down the shoulder of Chubb.
Right, and I know Le'Veon Bell we're not really talking about, but to me, Le'Veon Bell, he's got maybe 3 years of healthy play left if you're lucky.
Maybe.
If you're lucky. So that's why I was like, well, if I'm going right now, I want to win year one. It's Melvin Gordon, Le'Veon Bell, without question. But if you're wanting to kind of either be balanced and be competitive over the next 3 to 4 years, or just go, I'm going to play the wait game. To me, you got to go either Melvin Gordon, Nick Chubb, either or. Dalvin Cook to me is set in stone.
Yeah,
you got to have
Cook's
him.
one of the guys. Yeah, and you could. It's just your preference on Gordon and Chubb. There's only like a 2 or 3 year difference between them anyway.
Right, and that's
age-wise.
Well, right, and I mean for me, biggest thing for Nick Chubb and Gordon, like I said, and the reason why I picked Nick Chubb is because he's on a younger, talented offense. I mean, you really look at it, the Browns across the board are all young guys that are just going to continue to get better and better, and they're just gelling. As long as they gel well, we're good. But Melvin Gordon, he's got Phillip Rivers, who's probably, according to him, going to play another couple years, but whatever. Keenan Allen's getting up in age. They didn't bring in Tyrell Williams, so they got Mike Williams. They've got Hunter Henry. They really didn't bring in a top wide receiver in the draft. So I mean,
which favors Gordon then.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Melvin Gordon, to me, if you're wanting to kind of go for the next couple of years, I think Melvin Gordon's, you take him over Nick Chubb. If you're wanting to try to make a balanced team over the next 3 to 4 to be competitive, I think that Nick Chubb has the potential. But I agree, the Kareem Hunt situation is really like the question mark or the gray area around the Nick Chubb. So
the only thing that scares me for Dynasty and Browns players, in 3 to 4 years, they're going to have to start paying all these first-round picks over again.
True.
And Landry's going to want a paycheck.
Right.
OBJ is going to want to get paid.
Right.
And Joku, all these guys, they're not going to be able to afford everyone.
Right. Baker, if he's blowing up.
Exactly.
So and then it says, or would you pick a wide receiver? And to me, the biggest thing is, and I think we talk about, it depends on the wide receiver. Now, obviously, the top echelon guys, the Hopkins, the Adams, these Michael Thomas, these guys are kind of
Julio.
Right.
If it's anybody past that four.
Right. I just think that if it's not one of these top 3 or 4 wide receivers, your best bet's to go with one of these because your next wide receivers are probably in that tier 2, 3 group, unfortunately.
Right.
So,
well, especially in PPR because all 4 of those running backs catch too.
Right. So, good question. Browse. Oh man, I don't want to butcher this. Browsdower says Diggs or Thielen this year. And he has a second part of that question, but we'll just say Diggs or Thielen this year for you.
Thielen.
See, I picked Diggs, and I just think that I just think that Kirk Cousins and him when as the year. And I hate to say it because at the beginning of the year it was all Thielen. It was like boom.
Thielen was number 1 wide receiver for like 10 weeks.
Then Diggs got hurt. Then Thielen got hurt. Then Diggs came back, and then Diggs was the guy the second half of the season. So
Thielen had a calf injury or something.
Right. I just think that I feel like you're flipping the coin, honestly, with Diggs or Thielen. I know everyone's like, oh, okay, it's Diggs or it's Thielen or I'm Team Thielen, I'm Team Diggs or whatever. It's like, honestly, I hate to say it, but ultimately I think when it comes down to it, it's going to come down to who's open. I know it sounds cliche for a wide receiver who's open, but to me, Thielen has the better opportunity to get open, I think, because of separation. But, I mean, it's coming down to what the offense looks like. If they're going to try to push this ball down the field, Diggs is the guy. If they're going to try to dink and dunk all the way down the field, I think Thielen's the guy.
Well, I just think, you just made my point. It goes by format for me.
Right.
If you're playing in standard formats, then Diggs is your guy.
Right.
If you're playing in half PPR, Thielen's going to get you 8-9 catches a game.
Right. That makes sense. So I agree with you. So without knowing, I personally think Diggs, but I think that I agree with you. I think that the way you made it, the point is a valid point. That depending on your scoring format, if it's non-PPR, I think Diggs has the slight edge above Thielen, and if it's in a PPR format, whether it's half or full, I think Thielen's got that slight edge, and I think that's literally when you look at the rankings, that's literally what you're looking at is what scoring format you're in.
Yep.
So, and then part 2 is. He says, in the Kansas City backfield, does Hyde cap the upside of Damian Williams? So what was your thought on that one?
I said no in PPR format.
Yeah.
If you're half PPR or PPR, Damian Williams is the guy.
Right.
Standard,
he's gonna get his carries. I mean, he's gonna be more viable for the red zone touchdowns.
I think what's gonna happen is we're gonna see like we seen last year with the Browns. Carlos Hyde started out, 1-2, whatever, and then they incorporated Chubb. Well, they incorporated Chubb a little bit more, and then finally Chubb just took it from him.
Right.
I think that's what's going to happen here too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you might see a split backfield. It might be a 70-30, 60-40, but I think that if you're in a, like you said, a PPR scoring format, I think Damian Williams long-term is going to be the guy you want. Hyde wouldn't be a guy that I would be steering clear from, because if Damian Williams were to get injured, Hyde immediately becomes that guy.
He's a definite handcuff.
Right.
Maybe the number one handcuff.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely have to, once we get into the handcuff show later in the year, we'll definitely have to talk more about these guys. But to me, initially, I'd rather have Damian Williams.
Absolutely.
But if the Damian Williams hype train continues to rise, I don't have a problem taking Hyde and stashing him away on my bench.
Absolutely not.
So
Smart move.
And then the last, I'm assuming he's trying to.
It's Tugger Woods.
Tugger Woods. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought he like fudged on the keyboard and he meant to say Tiger Woods, but
No,
I
'cause
don't
he
think
put
Tiger
two-
plays fantasy football.
Well, he put 2 G's anyway.
Okay, typo.
Unless he messed up twice. Who is the running back you really want to own in San Francisco?
All right, I'll let you handle it because I think we're kind of on the same page ultimately.
Okay. Well, if it's me, I don't want to own any of them.
Well, this is also
because
okay,
there's
so
like 4 starting
we are on the
running
same
backs.
team.
However, if I had to pick one, it's going to be Tevin Coleman.
Correct. I was gonna say, at the current landscape of how that backfield looks and how it's like crowded. I mean, McKinnon's still there. You got Breida. You got Wilson's there. I mean, there's a lot of guys.
That Wilson or Mostert,
Right. Mostert's there.
Those guys are gone, I think.
Well, I think that one of them brought back. Mostert got signed back off of
did he?
injury. Yeah.
Okay.
Now
Well,
Wilson's probably, I think, if anything, worst case scenario, he's a special teams guy.
Breida's injury prone.
Right.
McKinnon's coming off an ACL injury,
Right.
and Tevin Coleman they just paid money to in free agency.
And he's a Shanahan guy.
Right. He fits this. I mean, he literally played in his system.
Right. So I think we're on the same page. If you had to take at the current landscape right now for purposes of drafting wise, Tevin Coleman is the guy that I would take out of this backfield. However, if the pieces start getting shipped out or traded away or cut or whatever, I still think Tevin Coleman's the money, and that's when, as you said, as Trimboli has pointed out, you follow the money, and I just think that bolsters Tevin Coleman higher and higher up.
I think, and this is going to be probably unpopular by a lot of people, but I think McKinnon could be on his way out.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of talks initially. It was more so the person that I kept hearing about was Breida, and Breida being traded or cut and everything else, as he's a low man on the totem pole, less money, cap hit and everything. But to me, you got a lot of money wrapped up in Jerick McKinnon, and if you paid all that money for Tevin Coleman, if you're not really doing a dual back set like you had with Freeman and Coleman in Atlanta, why are you paying that much money for a back to sit?
I think you could get just the same amount of production with Coleman and Breida that you could with Coleman and McKinnon, and you're spending a lot less on the cap.
Right, and I think that's the biggest thing. McKinnon's coming off of a pretty serious injury. Breida was injured a lot last year and never really healthy, and he still performed very well.
Yeah, because now you're going to have to look at cap space now for the 49ers. Jimmy G's going to be wanting that contract here in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And George Kittle.
Yeah.
Came out of nowhere. He's going to want to get paid too.
Yeah. So, all right, we've got 2 voicemails, so let's go ahead and get to the first one. This is from a guy named Frank.
Hey, guys. This is Frank. Just wanted to submit a listener question for the next episode. Keep them coming. Love the podcast. Just an easy one. I'm just curious for like some 3rd, 4th round sleepers maybe, and like redraft, just basic PPR. Anybody that you would identify 3rd, 4th round that could be some sleepers, have some potential going into this season's fantasy drafts. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, Frank, we appreciate the voicemail. The 2 guys that I pointed out for me, Devonta Freeman as the running back that I would love to have in sleepers, because I just think he is – everybody – I know that we've talked about it and we've said that there is concern because there's a health issue risk with him, but for a 4th-round draft pick, I mean, he's your RB2, maybe your RB3, depending on how you're drafting. That's perfect.
Right.
I mean, and he is the guy. And we just talked about hit on Ito Smith. No, I'm good. I'll take Devonta Freeman in that offense. And they brought back Dirk Cutter, so the offense is going to go back to that offensive style.
Yep.
So, and he can catch out of the backfield. So I just think that this is perfect for Devonta Freeman. And this is a guy that's getting continually pushed back farther and farther in mock drafts that I'm seeing because no one's hyped up on him. Everybody,
Slide him down.
Right. Let him ride down. I'll definitely draft him in the 4th. I mean, he went from initially in ADP, I looked, he was initially in the 3rd round. And as the draft got closer, his ADP slowly dropped back, and then once they didn't draft a running back high, I was like, okay, so his ADP should jump. No, his ADP actually fell even farther. So he's like in the back end, like mid to back end of the 4th round. I'm like, are you serious? I will gladly take him in that spot.
Yeah, especially
That's
if
an
you
RB1.
especially if you go running back heavy.
I mean, that's an RB1 in an offense, and he's a top 12 potential running back, and you're getting him in the 4th round. Thank you.
Yeah.
Twice, two
Yeah.
times on Sunday. What was that? Two
Take two
times.
helpings. There you
Two
go.
helpings. There you go. And then Julian Edelman. He's the wide receiver 1 in this offense. No Gronk. So, Tom Brady and him are BFFs. He's going to rely heavy on him. And we talked about last year being hyped up on Julian Edelman. And he got hit with the 4-game suspension. But
But he still balled out.
right. So, to me, you've got no Gronk. They didn't go get a high-end tight end.
Nope.
They didn't really they got N'Keal Harry, which I think that's good for Edelman because Edelman can still move the field.
Well, N'Keal Harry will just take the Josh Gordon / Chris Hogan spot.
Right. But I agree.
Edelman's got his spot niched out.
And like we said, he's literally the number 1 go-to guy for Brady. And Brady is as we've seen has slowly started doing the whole slowly bringing the passing average yardage down.
Sure.
Dinking and dunking down the field, and Edelman can do that.
PPR formats, you want Edelman, you want James White.
Oh my gosh. When I saw that Edelman's like in the 5th or 6th round, I looked at this morning. I was like, are you serious?
Yep.
Thank you. I will gladly take him as my wide receiver 2 or even 3, depending on if this draft is the way it's going. So and then we have, did you have 2 guys?
Yeah, I had 2
Okay.
guys, just real quick.
Yeah.
Mark Ingram,
Yeah.
RB1 going to Baltimore.
Yeah.
They run a lot anyway.
Yep.
If Mark Ingram's sitting there in the 4th round or 5th round, I'm taking him.
I was say I looked this morning. I think he was in the 5th round, middle of the 5th round. I'm like, in a 10-team league, yes, gladly.
Absolutely. And then my wide receiver, of course, I've said his name for the last 2 years, Cooper Kupp.
Yes.
I know he's coming off an injury, but that offense is high octane, and there's so many weapons there. They can't double team everybody. And Cooper Kupp, when he's healthy in there, he's golf's number 1 guy.
That I was going to make the point was that the big thing
In
for
the
him
slot.
is he is the number 1 receiving option in that offense when he is healthy. And you saw the offense slowly tank and struggle when he got injured.
Yep.
I mean, Robert Woods is going to get his. Brandon Cooks is going to get his. And if there's any issue with Gurley and they try to take the load off of Gurley and not hand him the ball 20-plus times a game and try to maybe do that 18 to 19 range a game, you're going to have to throw the ball more.
Yep.
So, and I just think that Cooper Kupp's a good one. And, I mean, you called it year 1, his rookie year, and you said this guy's going to be the best fantasy wide receiver for this class this year as a rookie.
Well, I said he was definitely going to be the Rams' number 1
And he was.
receiver. I mean, Todd Gurley technically was, but I meant wide receiver.
Right.
Cooper Kupp was the guy.
Yeah, the fact that he is continuing to still slide in drafts blows my mind. I know he's coming off of a pretty decent size
I
injury,
don't
but
think
still.
that's not going to matter.
No.
This guy's a beast.
All right, and then our final question that we got voicemail-wise comes from I think it's Stefan. Let me make sure.
How you doing? My name is Stephen Worthington. Just leaving a question. Every year, there's a few players that, you may be high on. They never get the chance to really get drafted or get put in a starting position. And whether it be injury or whatnot, they get the opportunity, and sometimes it just takes off. Think about Tom Brady, for example, is the obvious answer. But most of those guys never get those chances. So who's that one guy or guys that you were sure on that was going to get that chance, but never just got that chance? Okay, thanks. Bye.
All right. So thanks, Stefan, for the voicemail. Who are the guys that you kind of picked out maybe coming out as a rookie that was a big time that were like, okay, this guy's got the perfect formula, height, weight, athletic ability, going to a great system that he's going to be able to excel in, and just did not take off year 1 for whatever reason.
Well, Tom Brady's a different animal. I mean, this guy was drafted in the 6th round.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for Drew Bledsoe getting hurt, we would have never known who Tom Brady was.
True.
But my guys, Christian Kirk.
Yeah.
Coming into that offense last year, they drafted Josh Rosen.
Yeah.
They were, they were used to throwing the ball anyway. Larry Fitzgerald was really their big target. So I thought Christian Kirk would have a lot more opportunities, and he just never showed up.
No, he did kind of have that rookie slump where he kind of took a slow start, and then he kind of had a few games where he was okay, but he wasn't consistently week to week like a viable option. You're like,
and it wasn't all on his fault though.
No.
I mean, their offensive line was trash, and they started the year off with Bradford, but that lasted 2 games, 3 games, whatever it was.
whenever
and
the
then
glass
Rosen
house
came.
broke.
Right. So, but yeah, he disappointed me a lot.
Yeah, I was high on him last year as a
I
rookie,
was
and I was
too.
like, you know what, this guy's got Larry Fitzgerald as the kind of the take the coverage away. This guy can stretch the field, and they're probably going to be playing from behind, so it's a lot of throwing, and they just couldn't get the ball out of Rosen's hand.
He didn't have time.
Right.
I mean, even David Johnson didn't have a really good fantasy year.
No.
And you would think with all the checkdowns, he would have did some, like
Right.
Saquon Barkley did, but no. And my next guy, Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah, he just struggles.
I thought with DeFilippo coming there from the Eagles,
right,
how Zach Ertz, blew up. I thought Kirk Cousins and Rudolph would just take off, but no. He didn't even get his first touchdown until week 9 or whatever.
Yeah. So, but I mean, for him, now he wasn't a rookie, but there was a changing of the guards for offensive coordinator purposes. But because reference like Christian Kirk was a rookie, and we were really high on him. But like Rudolph was a veteran. He was in the same offense with the guys, and I just think that DeFilippo was, as you said, was labeled as the tight end whisperer. He had propelled some of these other non-essential Baldridge, or is that right? Did I draw? No, that's the guy on NFL Network with a crooked finger. Who's the guy out of that was in Cleveland that's disappeared out of left field?
Who?
The tight end that he.
Gary Barnidge.
Barnidge. I want to say Baldridge.
He was thinking about Brian Baldinger.
Yeah, that guy's got the crooked finger. Anyways, but yeah, I just think that he was viable. He made him viable. Then he goes to Philadelphia, makes Ertz viable. I mean, propels him to fantasy relevance. You're like,
and Trey Burton, to where Trey Burton gets a contract by the Bears.
Right. And then you go into Kyle Rudolph, and you're just like, did you not speak to him? I mean, I know you're the whisperer for tight ends, but did you never speak to him? I mean,
well, I don't know, but they drafted Irv Smith this year, and they've already said that Kyle Rudolph's on the trade block.
Yeah, I agree with you. Kyle Rudolph was such a disappointment last year. I mean, we had him up there in rankings and projections, and it was like, this guy's perfect. He's going into a pass-heavy offense that Kirk Cousins likes to favor the tight end for fantasy purposes, as well as DeFilippo coming. I mean, it was the perfect setup.
Yeah, it was. You would have thought that. That's why I had in my hot take, in our hot take show, I had Rudolph in my top 3.
Yeah, he should have. I mean, he should have been a top 5 based on
he
what
had
you
a
were.
3 on it, but it was like a 33.
Yeah,
not that low. But seriously, it was terrible.
So and then this year, I think that unfortunately for Rudolph, I think he is.
When they drafted Irv Smith, I mean, that was kind of like
the door is slowly closing for him, and it may close before the season even starts.
Well, he's on the trade block.
But Christian Kirk, I like him this year with them bringing in Kyler Murray and bringing in all these other wide receivers. I think that just helps Christian Kirk for fantasy purposes.
All the Cardinal offensive players have taken a step up.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. So, now for me, the guys that I kind of mentioned, now they were both rookies last year. The first one was Royce Freeman, drafted really with some serious draft capital there in Denver, and Lindsey was the guy. Freeman got the opportunity a couple times, never really did anything with it, and Lindsey took it and ran with it. No pun intended. I just think I just think he's sitting there perfect. Draft-wise, and you're like, great, he's going to be the guy. He's coming in from an offense that used him in every aspect out of Oregon, and you're like, great, cool. And then he gets to Denver, and you're like, okay, so where's he at? And you're like, why is he not playing? Or he gets like 1 or 2 snaps, and then once they get to the goal line, it's Lindsey. And you're like, okay.
At the beginning of the season, they had C.J. Anderson. It was like rotating all 3 of them, and then by mid-season, it was the Philip Lindsey show.
Right. So I think Royce Freeman was a disappointment for me last year, and then also Rashad Penny was a disappointment.
Huge disappointment.
I mean, they used a high draft pick for him, and now, granted, I know he got hurt and he had some surgery that he had to fix, but I just think that, and I don't know, man. I just
the hype was real with him.
The hype was so high, and I unfortunately I took a piece from that cake, and I was like, oh great, this is gonna be awesome. You got a true running back that's gonna help out Russell Wilson. Enter Chris Carson. And you're like, okay,
Mike Davis.
Right. Goodbye, Rashad Penny.
Yeah, they were all getting in the mix except for Penny.
So, to me, those were the 2 guys that I had last year that were horrible, horrible disappointments for fantasy purposes that were both drafted high in the NFL draft. Because that's the thing we always talk about is for rookies, look at the draft capital. If they're drafted in those first couple rounds to a team in need of said position, they are sliding right into that viable fantasy option, like Josh Jacobs. It'd be like Josh Jacobs being drafted and all of a sudden Doug Martin being fantasy relevant this year. Please don't do that, Doug.
That is not going to happen. I'm calling that right now.
I'm just saying that's the concept about what we're talking about. Like these guys, these running backs are being drafted really high up or to teams that need running backs, and they end up doing nothing. So I don't know. I was just disappointed and surprised in both that these guys never really, unfortunately, took off. Because I was high on both of these guys, and they both.
Kerryon Johnson had a few good games too, but he kind of disappointed too.
And I I just don't understand what Detroit. He's another one Detroit's doing with that situation, because they brought in LeGarrette Blount last year, and then they were feeding him compared to Carry-On, and then this year I'm just like,
They bring in C.J. Anderson.
right? You're like, okay, so you just literally let LeGarrette Blount leave, and now you bring in C.J. Anderson, who's a better version of LeGarrette Blount, and you're like, why? What are we doing with Carry-On Johnson? Like, I just don't understand.
I just don't think Patricia's sold on him.
I think Patricia's got that Bill Belichick mindset where I'll just run everybody out on the field at some point. So
It worked for Belichick.
it did. So, all right. So that's all we got for today with the listener questions. We appreciate you guys.
Absolutely.
Both not only like filling it out on the site, but on SleeperBot, as well as leaving us voicemails. And you guys can leave those anytime. We'll get to them if we have chance. I mean, there's a couple episodes. If you guys send one in, it's a good question. We'll kind of fit it into the episode. So Don't feel like just because it's not a take it or leave it episode that you can't send in questions via SleeperBot on the website,
Twitter, whatever.
Right. We will answer your questions, and if we can't get to it on the show, we'll get back to you via messaging it back either way. So thanks again for tuning in to today's show, whether it's on the podcast side, YouTube, or on DATV for the local Dayton viewers. We have a lot going on in this off season. I know it's for off season in theory, you're like, oh, it's not a whole lot going on, but for us, for fantasy purposes, we've got Draft Party USA coming up in August. I know that you're thinking, oh well, it's May. Why not? Why are we talking about this? Well, because the tickets are slowly going to come off the board. I mean, they have been, and I just have a feeling once we get into that June-July time frame, they're going to go really quickly. So if you're wanting to come out, go to draftpartyusa.com, go on to the events tab, and find the Dayton Scene 75 event. That's the one that we're going to be at. It's $49 to reserve your league, and then everybody obviously will pay after that. It's just to get yourself reserved a spot at the event. There's going to be drafts kit, like the draft kit, which will include your draft board, stickers, everything's all included. You get your pizza, you get your soft drinks, you get all that to come hang out with us. That's the big thing. You get to hang out with all of us. You get to hang out with your league mates. It's a good time. We're looking forward to meeting with you guys.
Absolutely.
And there's going to be goodie bags that we're going to hand out to you guys as well, to the league, each league that signs up. But that's the big thing for us, is to kind of meet and greet with you guys as much as possible. And they've given Draft Party USA as well as Scene 75 has given us that opportunity to meet and greet with you guys while you draft. So you can head over to the site, thehateful8ff.com. That's going to be where all of our articles are slowly kind of trickling in as well. I know it's the off season, but slowly are trickling in, as well as the apparel that you can go ahead and purchase. And then if you go to averagejonation.com, you can get signed up for our draft loadout for this year. It's $8 right now for pre-order, and as we talked about earlier in the show, you can, if you pre-order and sign up, you're going to get a 50% off promo code from Trophy Smack for your championship ring that you want to buy for your league, as well as be entered into a drawing that we're going to give away a free listener, free pre-order. We're going to give a championship ring away as well. So
it's $8.
Right. I mean, the championship rings are, I think, normally like $30, so you're paying $15 for a ring with the promo code and $8, so you're still paying under $30, and you're getting a ring, you're getting the draft loadout, which is going to help you at your fantasy draft.
And plus, a chance to win another ring.
Right. So that's the big thing. And the draft loadouts have been, we continually, every day, we're getting a handful of people who are buying it. So the more people that buy it, obviously, the chances are going to be greater to, for purposes to get yourself a fantasy championship ring for free, but also to buy it. I mean, that's the big thing. Everybody should have a fantasy championship ring in their league. Simple as that.
Yeah.
So I think that's all we got for today. You can follow me on Twitter at jpickleTH8FF. You can follow Blackburn at J Blackburn TH8FF.
Yep.
He's not here today, but you can follow Trimboli at FTrim TH8FF, or you can follow the podcast handle at the Hateful 8FF. So we're on there 24/7. If we don't get back to you within a couple minutes, it's probably because I'm like eating a sandwich or watching something.
I'm definitely eating a sandwich.
So, all right, that's all we got for today. We appreciate it, and we will see you guys next week.
Later.